Welcome to GameSack. This time around, we're talking about some games that they didn't have real sequels for one reason or another.
Yeah, I like games that have a part 2 on the end of it, or part 3. You know, these games don't, and there's a bazillion reasons why. I mean, you know, naming rights and crap like that, but these, half the time you don't even know they exist because they're a completely different name.
So let's just start checking out some of these games.
That's right, Joe. Let's. Do you remember the Pocky and Rocky games for the Super Nintendo? We talked a little bit about them in our multiplayer games episode. I won't go into super detail, but I will refresh your memory. It's a series of overhead run and gun games that was developed by Natsume. They're 1 or 2 player games that take you through many levels that are filled to the brim with enemies. The games are far from easy, but they're not impossible and are generally really fun to play. Back in the mid-2000s, Starfish Games were going to release a sequel to the original arcade game of Kiki Kai Kai, or as we know it, Pocky and Rocky. Starfish ran into some legal problems with Square Enix, who owns the rights to the series. And they ultimately did release a game in 2008 for the Wii and PS2. To get around the legal issues, Starfish changed some aspects of the game so it didn't have much relation to the Pocky and Rocky series. First and foremost was the name, which was changed to Heavenly Guardian. Secondly, the main character changed from Pocky to Sayuki, who is a snow goddess. Sayuki controls close to Pocky but has more moves. She doesn't have the close range attack, but that's fine as I really never used that in the previous games. Which I should have as I played it again, it's like really powerful. There's 4 different types of projectile attacks that she can get that correspond to a colored crystal. The more of the same color crystals you get, the more rapid the attack becomes. The 3-way shot worked the best for me since it covers a wide area, and since there's enemies all over the place, a wide shot is the best shot. The others are okay, and I unfortunately was forced to use them from time to time, and that's because I don't pay close attention when I'm picking up icons from fallen enemies and chests. When it comes to games, I'm just kinda greedy and just grab everything out of habit. Besides projectile attacks, Sayuki does have a helper character named Toto. Toto is that white bunny looking thing that follows you. It looks harmless enough, but damn is it useful. You can send him off to freeze enemies and their projectiles and he'll circle you for protection. Another helpful tool is a blizzard that you can conjure up by shaking the Wii remote. I'm sure the PS2 version is much easier with just a simple button push. It doesn't cover the whole screen, but it's good at freezing enemies and slowing down bosses a bit. The only bad thing about the 2 attacks that I just mentioned is that they take snowballs to use them. Yes, snowballs. Enemies will drop them and it's well worth your while to pick them up. Collect as many as you can and save them for the boss fights. Using these 2 attacks during a boss fight makes it so much easier. However, just like the previous games, this one isn't easy. I died many times and so will you. It's fine though, as you can start with a nice supply of lives and respawn not too far from where you died. Besides enemies making the game hard, there's some unpolished programming that'll also add to your frustration. Like here where I'm shooting this block of slime but I'm not hitting him. This kind of crap should not have made it to the final version. But I guess I can forgive it, and it only seems to happen when Sayuki is close to walls, and honestly it really didn't diminish the fun factor. I do like the graphics in the game, and the sprites and backgrounds have some nice detail and tons of color. The music is actually pretty enjoyable, but it should be louder when you're playing. Yes, even though the internet hates this game, I'm on the other side and actually think it's a fun title. It was a budget title when it was released, and I think I paid like $30 for it at the time. Nowadays, it goes for less than $12 new, so if it looks like a game you might enjoy, then give it a try.
This is Metropolis Street Racer on the Dreamcast. This one uses what they call a kudos system to reward you for driving stylishly and perfectly and punish you for even the tiniest mistake. You so much as touch a single atom of another object and it says, "No kudos for Jew." To be honest, I never really enjoyed this game. The tracks all feel extremely cramped and almost every turn is far too tight for the game to be really enjoyable. Of course, the brakes on every car are extremely weak, which makes slowing down for the tight curves really tough. Also, I kinda don't really like driving perfectly. Instead, I like having fun. But you are racing in real cities and they do look pretty good. Also, you can have the game's time match your own internal clock if you wish. There's even a widescreen mode which actually needs to be unlocked. Now this sounds strange, but I know why it's a hidden feature. For one, they didn't implement it very well at all. Instead of actually being wider, they just mainly cropped the top and bottom of the screen. It starts out looking okay, but I found out each new race I entered was more and more squished, so it's really quite buggy. So honestly, I recommend just racing in 4x3 as it performs a lot better and it's more enjoyable. There's really not a whole lot of variety in the music here. Some of it's not even close to being appropriate for a racing game.
How can you live without me? Maybe we should both be on our own.
The spiritual successor is, of course, Project Gotham Racing on the Xbox. Since Dave talked about this one in our launch games episode, I'm going to be as brief as I can with this one. First of all, you're probably wondering, why the name change? Well, Sega was the publisher of Metropolis Street Racing and probably retained the rights to the name. But hey, they named it after another DC Universe city. The first one was Superman, and this one, of course, is Batman. Not that either have anything to do with any of the games. Anyway, the game improves the kudos system by showing you what's happening on screen and adding a combo system. I never really got too much into this one because I found it difficult to meet the goals required. Up next was Project Gotham Racing 2, also on the original Xbox. This one is now in widescreen, looks a lot better, but sadly it runs at only half the frame rate of the first Gotham game. I feel that the control and gameplay have improved a lot here, and the car's brakes now actually work. You're also not penalized as much for errors now, which makes the game so much more enjoyable, at least on the medium difficulty. But if you want gold or platinum medals, you're going to have to increase that difficulty. Like the first Gotham game, the tracks all have a much better design than Metropolis Street Racer, and that really helps a lot. This one is fairly new to me, so I haven't really played a whole lot of it yet. When the Xbox 360 came around, we got Project Gotham Racing 3. This one is actually pretty awesome. Not only are the graphics and sound much better, but the gameplay has continued to improve. So far, this is the Project Gotham game that I've enjoyed the most. The controls are extremely fair, and earning the kudos is actually really fun. My biggest complaint is that the graphics can be a bit too dark in spots, and instead of having a gamma adjustment, it tells you to adjust your TV instead. The music is all licensed stuff. You can choose your genre, and I chose electronica for my style, and I get Death Cab for Cutie? Okay, I guess, though I consider them more easy listening than electronica. There's also more cars here. And I like the fact that I'm not just racing a normal ass street car this time around, but instead cars you rarely see on the road in real life. Project Gotham Racing 4, also on the 360, continues the trend. Again, this one is really good. Sadly, at first you're back to driving slow-ass common person vehicles that are no fun at all to drive. But this game adds in motorcycles. Yeah, like this old clunker is going to be able to overtake a motorcycle. Also, isn't motorcycles racing cars kind of a bad idea? I mean, for them? As with the last game, kudos are mostly used for currency rather than a requirement for passing a stage. There are more cities this time around, and all in all, it's a great game aside from the boring cars. There's over 130 cars though, so eventually you're going to be able to find one you like. But the spiritual series doesn't end here, oh no. Many of the staff from Bizarre Creations went on over to Microsoft and worked on Forza Horizon. Forza Horizon. This is an open-world game set in a fake-ass version of Colorado. Obviously, as you can see, it looks really nice. It has a point system similar to Kudos, but it's not actually Kudos. But like I said, it works in a very similar fashion. It rewards you with points for doing the same kind of crazy driving things. Of course, the game got a few sequels as well, but I have a hard time recommending them because a lot of it is locked behind DLC. I don't know, just get them used or something. It's still a really good game though, and it's definitely way far away from what Metropolis Street Racer started out as.
Rez is a rhythm shooter that we talked about way back in episode number 39, which was titled Rail Shooters. I'm playing the sweet-ass HD version on the Xbox 360 here. If you haven't played Rez, all I can tell you is that it plays fairly similar to the Panzer Dragoon series. If you haven't played the Panzer Dragoon series, it plays kinda like Rez if you've ever played that. So the story revolves around you traveling into the Project Cape computer system to try to keep the AI called Eden from shutting down. This is all fine and dandy, and you get to do this to a cool electronic soundtrack. You start a level with a bass music track, and when you shoot your enemies, the sound it makes contributes to the audio track. Each level has many layers to it, and as you start a new layer, the music becomes more complete. As you can see, the game is displayed mainly in vector-style graphics over a solid background. It feels minimalistic, but it works really well and helps the game really stand out. I used to play this game a lot, and I really liked it. I always wondered why a Rez 2 never came out, and recently I found out why. Rez did get a spiritual sequel, and it was titled Child of Eden, and I'm playing it on the PS3 here. I wish I would have known back in 2011 when this game was released. I would have bought it right away. Director Tetsuya Mizuguchi is the mastermind behind both games. Since Rez is owned by Sega, and Mizuguchi left and became the co-founder of Q Entertainment, it's easy to see why this title was changed. So here we are with Child of Eden, and this Eden, even though it's not mentioned, seems to be the same Eden from Rez. This time though, a girl named Lumi, the first human born in space, archives everything she's done in Eden. Centuries after her death, scientists try to recreate Lumi's persona inside Eden, but something goes wrong and you have to save her persona in Eden as well. It's amazing what a generation in game hardware can do for visuals. Playing this title, all your visual senses are attacked with crazy and beautiful imagery. You'll see remnants of the vector style that was Rez, but as you can see, everything else is just insane. You've got to play the levels multiple times if you want to catch even half of what's happening in the backgrounds. And the game will change based on how you played the level the previous time. Rez used 2 buttons for gameplay, and this title only adds 1 more, so it's far from confusing to control. Well, it's not confusing, but it kind of is. And for me, the confusing part is that for maximum performance, your button pushes should be in rhythm with the music. You can lock on up to 8 enemies at once. If you release a button at the right time, you'll be in beat with the music and score high points. The screen will let you know when this happens, but I always felt like I wasn't even close to being in time with the music. The music is good in this game, and it's done by Genki Rockets. Genki Rockets is comprised of the game's director Tetsuya Mizuguchi and the music producer Kenji Tamai. Unlike the first game, you aren't building tracks, but you're just adding to them. Each song features singing by Rachel Rhodes, who portrays Lumi in the game. You'll see her all throughout the game, from the menu screen to appearances in levels. I usually wouldn't like to see this in a game, but it doesn't annoy me here, even though it's hard to concentrate on the action while she's in the background. This is definitely a fun experience, and I'm glad that I learned about it, and the best part is that you can get it for under $10 new, and it's worth at least that. If you like Rez, then you'll like this. It's also available on the Xbox 360. Hell, if you have a 3D TV, then you can play the PS3 version in 3D if you want. Either way, just give it a chance.
Alright, we're back. Man, Rez is an interesting game, especially the HD version on the Xbox 360.
It is. It looks so much better than the original.
Yeah.
And Child of Eden, you know, it feels just like Rez. It's an amazing game, and it looks crazy.
It's almost
Just
like it
crazy
was a
graphics.
spiritual sequel.
Almost like it was.
Or a spiritual successor.
It could be. All I know is you've got 2 amazing games coming up.
And let's get right into them. Radiant Silvergun on the Saturn by Treasure is a tremendously good vertical shooter. I really need to play this one more often. In this game, you don't have any power-ups of any kind. Instead, each button on the controller fires off a different weapon at any time. And it's really important to become familiar with where each weapon is on the controller because you're going to need to be switching between them all the time. There's also a sword slash type of deal, and for the longest time that's all I thought it was. Well, it's actually much more than that. You can slash the pink bullets out of the way, and the sword collects energy by doing this. When this meter up here fills up, you can unleash a super powerful sword attack. It can only collect the pink bullets though. Fortunately, the game sends enemies in just to shoot pink bullets at you for this very reason. The game became way more enjoyable when I discovered this, and I already enjoyed the hell out of it. This is just one of those games that truly does live up to the hype. Even back when it was released, it had a lot of hubbub about it, and I bought it as soon as I could. And looking at how much it costs now, I'm glad I did. Since it's a treasure game, it's a boss fest, and that's really its only minor flaw, and I mean minor. Some of the bosses look really cool, while others don't really look like anything at all. The graphics are spectacular, and Treasure did an amazing job pushing the system. Likewise, the music is very intense and adds to the game immeasurably. It's amazing. And the best part of the game is the spine card. Just kidding, nobody cares. The game is pretty tough, so it might be a good idea to start out on an easier difficulty and get the feel for it first. It's also available digitally on the Xbox 360, but I much prefer using the Saturn controller. Ask your grandma to buy this game for you today. The spiritual sequel is, of course, Ikaruga on the Dreamcast. And holy hell had I forgotten how epic this game is. Once again, it's a vertical shooter, but this time it's in the vertical arcade aspect ratio, so it's skinnier. You get the most resolution playing in vertical mode, or Tate or Tate, and that's what I'm doing here. And I like saying Tate because, for some of you, I know that scrunches your panties, and that kind of amuses me. Once again, you have no power-ups of any kind, and you have everything you need right at the start. Actually, you only have your main shot, but here's the deal. You can press the B button to switch between white and black forms. Both your ship and your firepower will switch colors. The enemy also fires the same two types of colors. If you're white, the enemy's black shots will kill you, but their white shots will cause no damage. Likewise, if you're black, the white shots will kill you. And if you're white, you do twice the damage to black enemies and vice versa. This game is super racist. There's also one other weapon that you have. If, for example, you're white, you can absorb white shots, and this fills up the meter at the bottom of the screen. Anytime the meter has any juice in it, you can unleash a super shot. Of course, the more full it is, the more powerful the shot. And it's a homing shot, so it's wise to use this as much as you can so you can hit enemies you otherwise can't reach. It's also really good for bosses. And speaking of bosses, this title has relatively few for a Treasure game, maybe only several dozen or so. Still, the gameplay here is brilliant, but in a different way than Radiant Silvergun. This was released in Japan well after Sega had stopped selling the system in the US. I bought it pretty much right away, but I didn't play it a whole heck of a lot because I was busy with the GameCube at the time, and the PS2, and the Xbox. But really, I should have played it more. Switching back and forth at the right times adds a lot of depth to the gameplay, and it's a lot more than just a simple gimmick. Though I did think it was kind of gimmicky back when I first got it. The graphics are pretty good, but they don't push the Dreamcast as much as Radiant Silvergun pushed the Saturn. The music, however, is still amazing and hugely adds to the quality of the overall experience. Now, I'm not sure if I like this more or if I like Radiant Silvergun more, but I'll tell you, I'm damn happy to have both of them. You can also get this for the GameCube, PC, Android, and I guess Xbox Live. This game kicks ass. Check it out.
Back in 2010, I downloaded one of my first ever digital games. The game was Limbo, developed by Playdead on the PS3, and even though I'm against buying digital-only titles, I went against my better judgment and bought it anyway. As I played the game, I ended up enjoying it way more than I thought I would. The simplistic art style of black and white really drew me in. The platforming was great, and the puzzles were tough in spots. And the gruesome deaths of a child were shocking at times. A few weeks ago, I went to play it again for this review. I went to get my first trophy, and lo and behold, I get a message stating that I need to unlock the full game. What? Wait, what? I did unlock the full game when I bought it 6 years ago. Where is it? This is why I hate digital content. Something I've paid for is now gone. Moving on, I learned that Limbo got a spiritual sequel with the title of Inside. Knowing how much I enjoyed Limbo, I again went against my better judgment and paid for the full digital copy on the PS4. As of right now, I don't regret my purchase because the game is amazing. I know in 6 years I'm going to regret it because, as we know, history repeats itself. Everything feels like Limbo, but there's enough new about it to make it feel fresh and not rehashed. The first thing you notice will be the graphics, of course. They're predominantly black and white with little splashes of color here and there. There's a lot more depth to the backgrounds this time, and it really adds to the atmosphere. As far as the story goes, I have no idea what's going on here. All I know is that you're trying to not get caught. In the beginning, people and dogs chase after you and you have very many narrow escapes. I guess these guys don't have radios to just call ahead and give their people a heads up that, hey, there's this kid coming, catch him. Just like the first game, it's all platforming and puzzles. I don't know what it is, but I have so much fun figuring out all the puzzles along the way. Most of them are easy, but some of them take a bit of thought and some trial and error, and it's a great feeling once you figure it out. And of course, there's still the gruesome deaths to your character. It wouldn't seem so bad if this wasn't a young-looking kid. Nobody wants to see a kid die. Like I said, there's some new gameplay mechanics here that are really nice. The one that I think I like the most is this helmet thing. As you're making your way through the game, you see lots of people that appear to be brain dead or zombies or something. Once you slip the helmet on, you can control the brain dead people that are close by. You can't do too much with them. You can have them push boxes, push buttons, or even throw you to platforms, but that's about it. And that's fine, because that's all you need to solve the puzzles and move on. Your character can also swim now, whereas in Limbo he would just die. At first he's like any normal human and can't hold his breath for too long. At one point something happens to change this, but I don't want to spoil it. As far as music goes, there really isn't any. The game is meant to feel minimalistic, and just having ambient sounds is all it needs. One thing that's strange about these games is that there's no level breaks. The whole game is just one long level. It's very strange because you're expecting at some point to complete an area, but you never do. You just keep going on and on and on, and then you reach the end. The game does save automatically, so if you need to take a break, just turn it off. If you like Limbo, then do yourself a favor and drop the $20 for the download. It's well worth it. And then after that, let's all sign a petition to get this title and Limbo on a physical release so we can have them forever.
For my final segment, I was going to talk about Gun Force 2, but we've covered this run and gun before and even did an entire Playing with Sax episode on it. Of course, the staff left IRAM and went on to make Metal Slug for the Neo Geo. Yep, this is definitely a spiritual successor, but we've also talked about it a bunch. So I felt that I shouldn't dedicate a segment to these games, awesome as they may be. Then I figured maybe I could talk about Kung Fu on the NES. I mean, we've never mentioned it before and it's a pretty fun single-plane beat-em-up, even though there's not much to it. But there was a problem. The spiritual sequel is Vigilante. Same type of game, only updated for the late 80s. We also did a Playing with Sax episode on the TurboGrafx-16 version here, and this game was also seen in our Launch Games episode. Man, honestly, picking games is harder than you guys might think. Now I sure as hell wasn't going to cover Mega Man. You know why? Because its spiritual successor is Mighty No. 9. I mean, damn, we just talked about that game. In fact, as we're making this episode here, the 2.5D Games episode, which has Mighty No. 9 in it, is still nearly a week away from being released to the public. No way I'm talking about a game twice that fast. So what the hell should I talk about? How about Sidearms? Yeah, that's the ticket. This was originally an arcade game by Capcom, but you can get it on the TurboGrafx-16 and even on CD if you import it. This is the PC Engine CD version and it's called Sidearms Special. At first it looks like a basic shooter, but this one allows you to turn around and shoot behind you at any time. You have two fire buttons on the controller and the left one shoots left and the right one shoots right. Pretty simple. Of course, you collect weapons and power-ups all throughout any given stage. You can select between them by pausing the game and choosing a different weapon. Sadly, this game just really isn't that good. It's extremely difficult and enemies like these snake things take thousands of hits. But you, of course, die in just one hit. What's more is that you have hardly any invincibility time when you respawn, so you have no chance to get your bearings before you die again. At least the music is kind of cool. There's also a Before Christ mode on the CD version. It's the same game, only it takes place before Christ, I guess. Man, graphics were sure a lot better before Jesus came around. At least a little anyway. The stages have all been redrawn and redesigned. You're no longer able to switch your weapons, and when you die, you go back to the beginning of the level. And this makes the game appear much more difficult. But it is actually slightly rebalanced. Forgotten Worlds is a spiritual sequel, and I'm playing it on the TurboGrafx Super CD here. Or Turbo Duo, same thing. I'm playing this version because it's the closest one to the arcade game. And also because I still had the system hooked up from playing Sidearms. Instead of shooting forwards and backwards, Forgotten Worlds adds to the mix by letting you rotate your character around 360 degrees. Enemies will come from everywhere, so you're going to be rotating a lot. They also made the game quite a bit more enjoyable as everything has improved. As you kill enemies, they leave behind coins called zenny for you to pick up, and you use these in the shops that pop up in each level to upgrade your character. I really enjoy this aspect. The control is kind of weird with this game as you rotate with the fire buttons, but it really doesn't take you too long to get used to. The graphics are nice and the music is really good too. Now it doesn't have a ton in common with Sidearms, but it really is a spiritual follow-up. And we're not done yet. There's Omega 5 on the Xbox 360, which is a downloadable title only. This one was made by Hudson Soft and Natsume, and to my knowledge, none of the original Capcom staff were involved. So it's probably not really a successor of any kind, but oh well, I'm covering it anyway. Though maybe it's a spiritual follow-up to Scat on the NES, which was itself kind of a spiritual offshoot to Forgotten Worlds. Anyone like Scat? Anyway, basically, Omega 5 here is a twin-stick shooter. You collect these pink triangles, and once you have enough of them, you can unleash a bomb. You also have an item that floats around you, which you can grapple onto enemies with, which causes them some damage. There's 3 different styles of weapons that you can use, but they're all pretty weak. My biggest gripe, aside from the overwhelmingly cheap enemies, is how slowly your character changes firing directions. It's similar to Forgotten Worlds in that regard, but at least that game had balanced gameplay. And after multiple attempts, I can't even make it to the end of the first stage. I really wanted to like this game, and it makes me sad that I'm ending on such a negative note. But it looks decent, and it has some really nice music though.
All right, there we go. A bunch of examples of spiritual sequels. Some really
Indeed.
good games in there. And what was your favorite?
Radiant Silvergun or Ikaruga.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't know which I like better.
Oh, they're both wonderful if you're good at shooters.
Radiant Silvergun has a little bit more color though.
Well,
I mean,
helps.
Ikaruga
Colors-
is mostly all white
Yeah.
and gray. But whatever, it's still really, really
Still a
fun.
good game.
And I was disappointed in Omega 5 on the Xbox 360. It's definitely not like, it's not a good spiritual sequel to Forgotten Worlds.
Interesting.
Anyway, what are some spiritual sequels that you guys like or know of or would like to see us cover? Let us know, and in the meantime, thank you for watching GameSack.
Joe.
Hey Dave, what's up?
Oh, here's that Super Nintendo cleaning kit you wanted. I brought it over. It's brand new. You can just have it. I've never used it. I've honestly never really needed to use it because, it's Nintendo. They make such quality stuff, and which leads me to wonder why you need it.
Excessive cobwebs in the cartridge slot. Thanks, Dave.
What?